The Galactic Educational Exchange Program was supposed to be peaceful. That's what they told HFY when he accepted the assassination contract. One simple target, one human student among thousands of diverse species at the prestigious Andromeda Prime Academy. How hard could it be to eliminate a soft-skinned biped from a backwater world that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel? HFY was one of the most feared assassins in the Spiral Arm. His species, the Valkyrie, were natural predators with razor-sharp claws, enhanced reflexes, and the ability to phase in and out of visibility at will. He had killed senators, warlords, and crime bosses across 17 different star systems. A simple human student would be child's play. The academy floated in the void between three suns, its crystalline spires gleaming like jewels against the cosmic backdrop. Students from over 200 species attended classes here, learning everything from quantum mechanics to interspecies diplomacy. It was the perfect place for an accident to happen. Marcus Chun had arrived at the academy 3 standard months ago, one of only 12 humans selected for the exchange program. He was studying xenobiology and had quickly gained a reputation for his curious nature and friendly demeanor. Other students found him oddly fascinating. This creature from the death world called Earth, where everything apparently tried to kill everything else. HFY had been watching Marcus for 2 weeks now, learning his routines. The human attended morning lectures in Biodome 7, had lunch in the common area, then spent afternoons in the practical labs. Every day, same schedule. Humans were so predictable, so mundane. What HFY didn't understand was why other students gave Marcus such a wide berth. The Throaxian beetle folk would skitter away when he approached. The crystalline Silmari would literally dim their light when he entered a room. Even a massive Gorvan, who stood 3 meters tall and could crush steel with their bare hands, seemed nervous around the small human. It's because he's from a Class 12 death world. He had overheard a Throaxian whisper to its clutchmate. Anything that survives on that nightmare planet has to be incredibly dangerous. HFY had laughed at this. He had studied Earth's file. Sure, it had some large predators and natural disasters, but nothing compared to the hell worlds he had survived on during his training. The humans were soft, weak, and had only recently crawled out of their planetary cradle. They were prey species that had somehow stumbled into space technology. The perfect moment came during a field trip to the Academy's zero-gravity training facility. Marcus was alone, floating in one of the smaller chambers, practicing movements for his upcoming practical exam. The chamber was soundproof, isolated, and the perfect place for an untraceable accident. HFY activated his cloaking field and slipped into the chamber. His claws extended, each one coated with a neurotoxin that would stop a Gorvan's heart in seconds. He had done this dance 1,000 times before. Approach from behind, one quick strike to the neck, watch the target convulse and die, then slip away before anyone noticed. The human was floating with his back turned, completely vulnerable. HFY pushed off from the wall, sailing silently through the zero-gravity toward his target. This was almost too easy. But as HFY reached out with his claws, something impossible happened. Without turning around, without any visible warning, Marcus suddenly twisted in the air and grabbed HFY's wrist. The movement was so fast, so fluid, that for a moment the assassin's mind couldn't process what had happened. "Hey there," Marcus said in perfect galactic standard, his voice calm and friendly. "Were you trying to sneak up on me?" HFY's cloaking field flickered and died. He found himself staring into Marcus's brown eyes, seeing something there that made his predatory instincts scream warnings. The human wasn't afraid. He wasn't even surprised. Those were the eyes of something that had looked death in the face so many times that it had become boring. "How did you?" HFY began, but Marcus cut him off. "Smell," Marcus said simply. "You've got a really distinctive scent, kind of like wet metal and ozone. Plus, the air currents changed when you enter the chamber." He tilted his head curiously. "Those are some impressive claws you've got there. The coating looks toxic. Professional grade." HFY tried to pull his arm free, but Marcus's grip was like a steel vise. Impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak. The file said their bone density was pathetic, their muscle fibers inefficient compared to proper predator species. Let me go, human, Zexai snarled, his other set of claws extending. You don't know what you're dealing with. Marcus smiled, and Zexai felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that enjoyed a challenge. Actually, Marcus said, I think I'm starting to figure it out. You're not a student, are you? Wrong body language. Too tense. Too focused. And that equipment. He glanced at Zexai's tactical harness, barely visible under his academy robes. Military grade, but modified for stealth work. I'm guessing you're here to kill someone. Zexai struck with his free claws, a move that should have opened Marcus from shoulder to hip. Instead, the human twisted impossibly in the zero gravity, using Zexai's own momentum against him. Suddenly, the assassin found himself spinning through the air, completely disoriented. When Zexai managed to stabilize himself, Marcus was floating calmly 10 meters away, examining something in his hand. It took Zexai a moment to realize it was one of his own claws, broken off at the base. Interesting, Marcus mused, holding the claw up to the light. Definitely neurotoxic. Probably synthesized from some kind of deep space organism. Very lethal. He looked at Zexai with what could only be described as academic interest. I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Chun. And you are? Zexai stared at the human in disbelief. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. Humans were supposed to be easy targets. They were supposed to panic when threatened, to beg for their lives, to die quickly and quietly. Instead, he was floating in zero gravity, missing a claw, while his target made casual conversation about the toxin that was supposed to kill him. This is impossible, Zexai whispered. Marcus shrugged. I get that a lot. So who sent you? And please don't say you'll never tell. I'm really curious, and I haven't had a good puzzle to solve in weeks. For the first time in his career, Zexai the assassin felt something he had never experienced before when facing a target. Fear. And from the look in Marcus's eyes, the human knew that Zexai had been in dangerous situations before. He had fought his way out of Throaxian hive complexes, survived assassination attempts from rival killers, and once spent 3 days being hunted by a pack of void wolves in the asteroid fields of Kepler 9. But he had never felt as thoroughly outmatched as he did floating in this training chamber, staring at a human who was casually examining his severed claw. You know, Marcus continued, rotating the toxic claw between his fingers. This reminds me of something we have back on Earth. Blue-ringed octopus. Tiny little thing, about the size of your fist, but its bite contains enough tetrodotoxin to kill 26 adult humans in minutes. He looked up at Zexai with genuine curiosity. Are you familiar with convergent evolution? Zexai's mind reeled. The human was giving him a biology lesson, in the middle of a failed assassination attempt, while floating in zero gravity, holding a claw that could kill a Gorvan. What? Zexai managed. Convergent evolution, Marcus repeated patiently. When different species develop similar traits independently because they're useful for survival, like how both sharks and dolphins have similar body shapes, even though one's a fish and the other's a mammal. He gestured with the claw. Your species developed neurotoxic claws, probably to take down prey much larger than yourselves. Very efficient. Zexai tried to process what was happening. This was supposed to be a simple kill. Get in, eliminate the target, get out. Instead, he was receiving a lecture from his intended victim about evolutionary biology. You're insane, Zexai said finally. Marcus laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both friendly and deeply unsettling. That's also something I hear a lot. My xenobiology professor says it's because humans developed on a world where everything is constantly trying to kill everything else. It does things to your perspective. Earth is not that dangerous, Zexai snapped. Try to regain some semblance of control over the situation. I read the files. It's barely a Class 12 death world. Marcus's expression grew thoughtful. You know, that's interesting. Who classifies these things anyway? Because I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding about what makes Earth dangerous. Despite himself, Zexai found himself listening. There was something hypnotic about the human's voice, the way he spoke as if they were having a casual conversation in a lecture hall instead of floating in a chamber where one of them was supposed to be dying. See, most species look at Earth and think big predators, Marcus continued. Lions, tigers, bears, that sort of thing. But that's not what makes Earth a death world. What makes Earth truly terrifying is the small stuff. The invisible stuff. Marcus pushed off gently from one wall, floating closer to Zexai. The assassin instinctively tried to back away, but found himself pressed against the chamber's curved surface. Take malaria, Marcus said conversationally. Tiny little parasite, spread by mosquitoes that are about the size of your smallest claw. Killed more humans throughout history than every war, natural disaster, and large predator combined. Or smallpox, a virus so small you need a microscope to see it, but it wiped out entire civilizations. Zexai's throat felt dry. There was something in the human's tone that made his predatory instincts scream warnings. But the really fun part, Marcus continued, is that we learned to live with all of this. Every human walking around today is the descendant of survivors. People who lived through ice ages, plague outbreaks, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts. We didn't just adapt to our world trying to kill us. We got really, really good at killing back. You're trying to scare me, Zexai said, but his voice lacked conviction. Marcus tilted his head. Am I? I thought I was just making conversation. But since you brought it up, he held up the toxic claw again. This neurotoxin of yours. I'm guessing it's similar to tetrodotoxin or maybe conotoxin, both of which we've developed antidotes for, by the way. We had to, because they occur naturally in some of our food sources. Zexai stared at him. You eat neurotoxic organisms? Oh, absolutely. Fugu is a delicacy in some parts of Earth. It's a fish that contains enough tetrodotoxin to kill 30 adults. We serve in restaurants. The chef has to be specially licensed because one wrong cut and everyone at the table dies. Marcus grinned. We do it because it tastes good and the risk makes it exciting. The assassin felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. Humans were supposed to be prey animals. Soft, weak, naive creatures who had stumbled into space by accident. You're lying, Zexai whispered. Marcus's expression grew serious. You know what? You're right to be suspicious. Here, let me show you something that might help clarify the situation. Before Zexai could react, Marcus moved. Not the clumsy, flailing motion he had expected from a species that had only recently developed spaceflight, but with the fluid grace of something that had evolved in three-dimensional environments. In one smooth motion, he caught Zexai's remaining claws, twisted them away from his body, and somehow maneuvered the assassin into what could only be described as a submission hold. Zexai found himself completely immobilized, his arms locked behind his back, floating helplessly while Marcus held him with what seemed like casual effort. Humans are pursuit predators, Marcus explained calmly, his voice directly next to Zexai's ear. We don't have claws or fangs or natural armor. What we have is endurance and pattern recognition. We track our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Then we move in for the kill. Zexai struggled, but the human's grip was unbreakable. How is this possible? Velcari were 3 times stronger than humans, according to every biological survey. The thing is, Marcus continued, when you're a pursuit predator, you get really good at reading your prey. Body language, breathing patterns, stress responses. You learn to predict what they'll do before they do it. He paused. You telegraphed that attack about 5 seconds before you made it. Impossible Zexai pet. Your species is barely space-capable. You're soft. Weak. Marcus chuckled. You know, that's the same mistake the Neanderthals made. They were stronger than us, tougher, better adapted to their environment. But they thought in straight lines. We thought in spirals. We didn't try to outmuscle them. We outmaneuvered them, outlasted them, outthought them. Zexai's mind raced. The files had said nothing about this. Nothing about humans being dangerous in combat. They were described as a young species, barely out of their home system, with no significant military achievements. The files, he began, are probably accurate. Marcus finished. We're a young species. We did only recently achieve FTL. We're not particularly strong or fast compared to most of the galaxy species. He shifted his grip slightly, somehow making it even more secure. But we're survivors, and we're problem solvers. Do you know how humans deal with predators that are bigger and stronger than us? Zexai said nothing. We make them extinct, Marcus said quietly. That's what we did with every major predator on Earth that saw us as prey. Cave bears, saber-toothed cats, giant wolves. We hunted them until there were none left. Not because we hated them, but because they were a problem that needed solving. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the life support systems. Zexai felt something he had never experienced before in his long career as an assassin. Not just fear, but a deep, primal understanding that he was no longer the predator in this relationship. So, Marcus said conversationally, now that we've established the situation, why don't you tell me who hired you to kill me? I'm really quite curious about the whole thing. Zexai closed his eyes, trying to process the magnitude of his failure. He had come here to kill a soft human student. Instead, he had discovered that the galaxy's assessment of humanity might be catastrophically wrong. The hegemony, he whispered. The trade hegemony hired me. They want the human exchange program shut down. Marcus's grip loosened slightly. Now that's interesting. Why would a trade organization want to kill students? Because you're dangerous, Zexai said, the words tumbling out. Not just you specifically, but all of you. The hegemony runs the galaxy's economy by controlling trade routes and maintaining the balance between species. But humans, he swallowed hard. Humans are problem solvers. Innovation is your primary survival trait. The hegemony's economists ran projections. Within 50 years of full galactic integration, humans will have revolutionized everything. Trade, technology, warfare. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, but there was no humor in it. They're scared of us, he said wonderingly. An entire galactic trade empire is scared of 12 human students. Should they be? Zexai asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew the answer. Marcus released him, pushing gently away to float at arm's length. When Zexai looked into the human's eyes, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Marcus Chun was smiling, but it wasn't the friendly expression he wore in the academy hallways. This was the smile of a predator that had just realized it was much, much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. You know what? Marcus said thoughtfully. I think they should be Marcus floated in the training chamber, watching the Velcari assassin with the same calm attention he might give to an interesting specimen in his xenobiology lab. Zexai hung motionless in the zero gravity, his predatory confidence completely shattered. For a professional killer who had terrorized half the galaxy, he looked remarkably like a confused child. So the trade hegemony wants to prevent human integration into galactic society. Marcus mused, absently twirling Zexai's severed claw between his fingers. That's actually quite flattering. Though I have to say, sending an assassin after students seems a bit extreme. You don't understand, Zexai said, his voice hollow. The projections show complete economic collapse within a century of full human integration. Your species doesn't just innovate, you optimize. You take existing systems and make them better, faster, more efficient. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And that's bad because the current system works for everyone, Zexai explained desperately. The Throaxians control manufacturing. The Gorvan handle heavy transport. The Silmari manage communications networks. Everyone has their niche. Everyone has their place. But humans? He gestured helplessly. Humans do everything. The hegemony's analysts call you universal adapters. Huh, Marcus said thoughtfully. That's actually a pretty accurate assessment. We do tend to be generalists rather than specialists. He looked at Zexai with genuine curiosity. But surely the galaxy can handle a little competition? Zexai stared at him in disbelief. Competition? You think this is about competition? 12 human students at this academy have already filed 17 revolutionary patent applications. Your roommate created a new form of faster-than-light communication using quantum entanglement. Another human figured out how to increase throwaxion manufacturing efficiency by 40% using something called lean production principles. Marcus frowned. That doesn't sound particularly threatening. The Throaxians have been using the same manufacturing processes for 8,000 years, Zexai said quietly. Your species has been in space for less than 50. Do you understand what that means? A slow smile spread across Marcus's face, and Zexai felt that familiar chill of predatory fear. It means, Marcus said slowly, that we're just getting started. The chamber's communications system crackled to life. Training Session 77 Alpha, please acknowledge status, came the voice of the facility supervisor. Marcus reached over and activated his comm unit without taking his eyes off Zexai. This is Marcus Chun. Training session proceeding normally. No issues to report. Acknowledged. Session time remaining, 47 standard minutes. The comm clicked off, leaving them alone again. Zexai watched in fascination as Marcus's demeanor shifted completely. One moment he had been a friendly student making casual conversation. The next he was something cold and calculating. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus said, his voice taking on a tone that made Zexai's survival instinct scream warnings. You're going to tell me everything about the hegemony's plans. Numbers, timelines, targets, methods. Everything. I can't, Zexai protested. Professional ethics. Marcus's smile turned absolutely frigid. Professional ethics? You came here to murder a student. In a school. I think your professional ethics ship sailed when you decided to commit genocide to preserve a trade monopoly. It's not genocide, Zexai said weakly. The hegemony just wants to slow human expansion. Keep you contained to your home system for another few centuries until the galaxy can adapt. By killing children, Marcus stated flatly. Zexai fell silent. Marcus pushed off from the wall and began to slowly circle the immobilized assassin, moving with the patient grace of something that had all the time in the world. You know, this explains a lot. I've been wondering why so many of my fellow students seem terrified of humans. It's not just because Earth is classified as a death world. Someone's been spreading propaganda. It's not propaganda if it's true, Zexai said desperately. Humans are dangerous. This conversation proves it. You should be dead right now. I'm one of the most feared assassins in the galaxy, and you defeated me without breaking a sweat. Marcus paused his circling. You want to know the really funny part? I'm not even combat trained. I'm a xenobiology student whose hobbies include rock climbing and ancient earth martial arts. If you think I'm dangerous, wait until you meet an actual human soldier. The assassin's blood went cold. Surely your species doesn't have many soldiers. You've been peaceful since achieving space flight. Marcus laughed, and the sound echoed strangely in the chamber. Peaceful? We've been involved in 17 different conflicts since leaving Earth. Not as aggressors, mind you. We keep running into species that mistake our friendliness for weakness. His expression grew distant. The Kethvar learned that lesson the hard way when they tried to raid our colony ships. The survivors called us the demons who smile while they kill. Zexai had heard whispers about the Kethvar incident, a minor species that had simply vanished from space lanes about 5 years ago. No one knew what had happened to them. You wiped them out? He whispered. Not wiped out, Marcus corrected. Educated. They exist. They're just very careful about who they choose to attack these days. Turns out that when you threaten human children, we stop being quite so friendly. He stopped circling and looked directly at Zexai. Which brings us back to our current situation. The assassin felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Marcus held up his comm unit. I've been recording this entire conversation. I now have a detailed confession from a professional assassin admitting to a hegemony-sponsored conspiracy to commit genocide against human students. His smile was predatory. The question is, what am I going to do with that information? Zexai's mind raced. If this recording reached human authorities, or worse, if it became public knowledge, the political fallout would be catastrophic. The hegemony had spent centuries building their reputation as neutral trade facilitators. Evidence of assassination conspiracies would destroy them. "You want something?" he said finally. Very perceptive, Marcus agreed. "I want names. I want locations. I want a complete breakdown of the hegemony's anti-human operations." He leaned closer. "And I want to know which of my fellow students they're planning to kill next. And if I refuse?" Marcus's expression grew thoughtful. "Well, I suppose I could turn you over to Academy security. They'd investigate, find the evidence, probably trace the conspiracy back to its source." He paused. "Of course, investigations take time. And while they're investigating, I have to warn the other human students about the threat. Which means Earth would have to be notified. Which means the human military would probably want to have a conversation with the trade hegemony." Zexai swallowed hard. "That would mean war, would it?" Marcus asked innocently. "I wouldn't know. I'm just a xenobiology student. But I imagine the hegemony has run projections on what would happen if humans decided to treat them as an active threat rather than a neutral trading partner." The assassin closed his eyes. The hegemony had indeed run those projections. The results had been classified at the highest levels, but Zexai had seen the summary. Complete economic collapse within 10 years, followed by systematic human expansion into every major trade route in the galaxy. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, it looked genuinely friendly. "I want you to help me save the galaxy from a very expensive war. Because the thing about humans, we're really good at finding peaceful solutions to problems." He held up the severed claw. "But we're even better at finding violent ones." Zexai stared at the human student floating in front of him. Finally, understanding why the galaxy's most powerful trade organization was terrified of a handful of teenagers from a backwater planet. Humans weren't just problem solvers. They were the kind of problem solvers who turned assassination attempts into recruitment opportunities. "All right," he said finally. "What do you need to know?" 3 days later, Marcus sat in the Academy's main dining hall, casually eating lunch while reviewing the intelligence package that Zexai had provided. The assassin sat across from him, still looking deeply uncomfortable with the situation. To anyone watching, they appeared to be two students sharing a meal and discussing coursework. 17 targets, Marcus said quietly, scrolling through the data on his tablet. "They really went all out, didn't they?" Zexai shifted nervously in his seat. The Valkyrie was still wearing his student disguise, though he looked thoroughly miserable. The hegemony considers the human exchange program an existential threat. They wanted to ensure complete mission success. Marcus nodded absently, making notes. Around them, the usual lunch crowd flowed through the dining hall. Throaxian students clustered around tables designed for their hive mind feeding habits, while Gorvin shared massive portions that could feed a human family for a week. The crystalline Silmari hummed softly as they absorbed mineral solutions, their bodies casting rainbow patterns on walls. None of them knew that their quiet human classmate was currently planning the downfall of the galaxy's most powerful trade organization. "I have to say," Marcus continued, "the target selection is quite sophisticated. They didn't just pick random students. Every human on this list is either working on revolutionary research or showing exceptional aptitude in strategic fields." He glanced up at Zexai. Sarah Martinez in advanced engineering, James Kim in quantum physics, Lisa Thompson in diplomatic studies. Someone did their homework. The hegemony has been monitoring human progress since your species achieved FTL, Zexai admitted. They have agents embedded in most major galactic institutions. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Most? All," Zexai corrected quietly. "They have agents in all major galactic institutions." "Including this academy?" The assassin nodded reluctantly. "Professor Veltoth in the Advanced Mathematics Department. Administrator Krexhai in Student Services. And..." He hesitated. "And?" Marcus prompted. "Dean Proximar." Marcus set down his fork and looked at Zexai with renewed interest. "The dean?" The one who personally approved the human exchange program. The same. The program was designed as a honey trap. Gather the most promising human students in one location, eliminate them, then use the tragedy to argue for restricting human expansion into galactic space. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his mind working through the implications. Then he smiled, and Zexai felt that now familiar chill of predatory anticipation. You know, Marcus said conversationally, that's actually quite clever. If I weren't the target, I'd be impressed. What are you going to do? Zexai asked. Marcus pulled up a new file on his tablet and began typing rapidly. I'm going to do what humans do best. I'm going to solve the problem in a way nobody expects. Across the dining hall, Marcus spotted Sarah Martinez entering with her usual study group. The advanced engineering student was brilliant, friendly, and, according to Zexai's intelligence, scheduled to die in an accident during tomorrow's lab session. Sarah, Marcus called out, waving her over. The young woman looked up and smiled, making her way through the crowded tables. She was tall and athletic, with the kind of practical demeanor that came from growing up on Mars's mining colonies. Hey, Marcus, how's the xenobiology project going? Good. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Are you familiar with the concept of controlled demolition? Sarah frowned. You mean like bringing down buildings safely? Sure, that's basic engineering. Why? Marcus gestured for her to sit down, then glanced meaningfully at Zexai. Because I think we might need to demolish something much bigger than a building. Over the next hour, Marcus carefully briefed Sarah on the situation, sharing just enough information to make her understand the scope of the threat without overwhelming her with details. Zexai watched in fascination as the human student's expression shifted from confusion to anger to cold calculation. They want to kill us, Sarah said finally, her voice deadly quiet. All of us. Because we're too good at our jobs. That's the simplified version, yes, Marcus agreed. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then looked up with an expression that made Zexai's predatory instincts scream warnings. What do you need? Marcus smiled. I need you to gather the other targets. Quietly. Don't alarm anyone. Don't change your routines, but make sure everyone is available for a meeting tonight. Where? Training Facility 7, the zero-gravity chamber. It's soundproof, and there are no monitoring devices. Marcus paused. And Sarah? Don't trust any of the faculty. We don't know who else might be compromised. After Sarah left, Zexai stared at Marcus with something approaching awe. You're going to tell them everything. Of course I am. They deserve to know they're in danger. But once you do that, you lose control of the situation. 17 humans, all of them knowing their targets? They'll panic. They'll make mistakes. Marcus laughed. You really don't understand humans at all, do you? We don't panic when we're threatened. We adapt. We innovate. His expression grew serious. And we work together. That evening, 17 human students gathered in the zero-gravity training chamber. Marcus had positioned himself in the center of the space, with Zexai floating nearby as a very uncomfortable exhibit. The other students formed a loose sphere around them, their faces showing varying degrees of confusion and concern. Before we begin, Marcus said calmly, I want everyone to understand that what we discuss here tonight will probably change the course of galactic history. So if anyone wants to leave now, this is your chance. Nobody moved. Marcus nodded approvingly. Good. Now, let me introduce you to Zexai. He's a professional assassin who was sent here to kill me. And after we're done talking, he's going to help us save the galaxy from what would probably be a very unpleasant war. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, but Marcus held up a hand for silence. I know it sounds insane. Trust me, 3 days ago, I would have agreed with you. But here's what we know. For the next hour, Marcus laid out everything. The hegemony conspiracy, the embedded agents, the planned assassinations, the economic projections that had made humanity's extinction seem like a reasonable business decision. When he finished, the chamber was completely silent. Then James Kim, the quantum physics student, spoke up. How many agents do they have? Unknown, Marcus replied. But we can assume it's significant. And They're planning to kill all of us? Within the next 2 weeks, yes. James was quiet for a moment, then smiled with an expression that made Zexai realize that Marcus might not be the most dangerous human in the chamber. Well, James said calmly, I guess we'd better kill them first. The other students began to nod in agreement, and Zexai felt a deep, existential terror as he realized what he was witnessing. 17 of the most brilliant young humans in the galaxy had just learned they were marked for death, and instead of panicking, they were planning. Marcus looked around the chamber at his fellow students, seeing the same cold calculation in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Actually, he said thoughtfully, I have a better idea. Instead of killing them, let's do something they'll never expect. What? Sarah asked. Marcus smiled, and every human in the chamber smiled with him. Zexai realized that he was looking at something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans who had stopped pretending to be harmless. Let's give them exactly what they want, Marcus said. Let's show them what happens when humans really do take over the galactic economy. 6 months later, the Galactic Trade Council held its emergency session on the neutral station of Kepler Prime. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony of clicks, hums, and translated speech as they tried to make sense of what had become known as the human incident. Zexai sat in the gallery, no longer disguised as a student. He wore the formal robes of a witness under galactic protection, his testimony having already shattered the hegemony's power structure. Beside him, Marcus Chun sat calmly reviewing notes on a tablet, looking for all the world like any other graduate student attending an academic conference, which in a way he was. The chair recognizes the human delegation, announced the council moderator, an ancient Silmari whose crystalline body had grown dim with age. Marcus stood and walked to the speaker's podium with the easy confidence of someone who had spent the last 6 months revolutionizing galactic civilization. The amphitheater fell silent as he adjusted the microphone and looked out at the assembled representatives. Honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 6 months ago, my fellow students, and I learned that the trade hegemony had decided to eliminate us because they viewed human integration into galactic society as an economic threat. A ripple of uncomfortable sounds went through the assembly. The story had broken 3 months ago, causing the largest political scandal in galactic history. The hegemony's leadership was either dead, in exile, or awaiting trial. Today, I'd like to share with you what we've accomplished since then and explain why the hegemony was both completely right and utterly wrong in their assessment of humanity. Marcus touched his tablet, and holographic displays materialized throughout the amphitheater, showing economic charts, trade route maps, and production statistics. They were right that human integration would fundamentally change the galactic economy. Marcus continued. In the past 6 months, human-designed innovations have increased overall galactic productivity by 37%. Our optimization protocols have reduced trade route transit times by an average of 42%. Human-supervised manufacturing processes have eliminated waste streams that species had considered inevitable for millennia. The displays showed shipping lanes that now pulsed with activity, manufacturing centers that glowed with unprecedented efficiency, and trade networks that had expanded to include systems previously considered too remote to be profitable. The Throaxian hive worlds have increased their manufacturing output by 60% using human lean production principles. The Gorvan transport guilds have cut their fuel costs in half through human-designed route optimization. The Silmari communication networks now carry 17 times more data using quantum compression algorithms developed by our quantum physics students. In the gallery, a Throaxian representative began the rapid wing buzzing that indicated extreme excitement among his species. The improvements to their manufacturing had eliminated food shortages across their homeworlds. But here's where the hegemony made their crucial error, Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone of a professor delivering a lecture. They assumed that human innovation would disrupt the existing order by replacing it with something exclusively human. They thought we would push other species out of their economic niches. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled delegates. Instead, we made everyone better at what they were already good at. The holographic displays shifted, showing collaborative projects. Human students working with Throaxian engineers. Gorvan pilots using human-designed navigation systems. Silmari researchers collaborating with human scientists on projects that neither species could have completed alone. The hegemony's economists were correct that unrestricted human expansion would have eventually led to economic dominance. Marcus continued. Humans are generalists. We adapt quickly, we innovate constantly, and we optimize everything we touch. Left to our own devices, we probably would have taken over major trade routes within 50 years. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was exactly what they had feared. But they made a fundamental mistake. Marcus said, his smile taking on an edge that made Zexhai remember their first encounter. They assumed that taking over was our goal. The displays changed again, showing something that had shocked galactic economists: the human home system's trade statistics. Despite having the technology and capability to control galactic trade routes, Earth's economic footprint had actually shrunk over the past 6 months. Humans aren't interested in controlling galactic trade, Marcus explained. We're interested in solving problems. And the biggest problem we identified was that the galaxy's economy was running far below optimal efficiency. So we fixed it. He gestured to the displays. Every innovation we've introduced has been shared freely. Every optimization protocol has been published in open journals. Every efficiency improvement has been offered without license fees or usage restrictions. A Gorvan representative rose to his massive height. Why? His translated voice boomed through the amphitheater. Your species could have charged enormous fees for these improvements. You could have become the wealthiest civilization in galactic history. Marcus looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Why would we want to do that? Wealth is just a tool for solving problems. We already have enough tools. What we want is to live in a galaxy that works properly. He touched his tablet again, and new displays showed long-term projections. Current models suggest that within 10 years, every major species will see their standard of living improve by at least 40%. Poverty will become statistically insignificant. Resource scarcity will be virtually eliminated. Interstellar travel will be faster, cheaper, and safer than ever before. The amphitheater was completely silent now. Several delegates were staring at the projections with expressions of disbelief. The hegemony was terrified that humans would disrupt the galactic economy. Marcus said quietly. They were right. We've disrupted centuries of artificial scarcity, planned obsolescence, and deliberately inefficient systems that enriched a few at the expense of many. He paused, looking out at the representatives of species that had spent millennia accepting economic limitations as natural law. The difference is that we've disrupted it by making it better. For everyone. Marcus stepped back from the podium, then seemed to remember something. Oh, and one more thing. The hegemony's projections showed that unrestricted human expansion would lead to galactic war within 50 years. They used this as justification for their assassination program. The displays showed new projections, these ones marked with human modifications. Our revised models suggest that unrestricted human expansion would indeed have led to conflict. Probably within 30 years, not 50. So we've restricted it ourselves. A shocked murmur went through the assembly. Earth's government has established strict limits on human expansion into galactic space. We will not seek territorial control beyond our current systems. We will not attempt to establish economic dominance over existing trade routes. We will not interfere in the internal affairs of established species. Marcus smiled. Instead, we're going to do what we do best. We're going to solve problems. Any species that wants human assistance with optimization, innovation, or efficiency improvements need only ask. No payment required. No political strings attached. No territorial demands. He looked directly at where Zexhai sat in the gallery. Because the thing the hegemony never understood about humans is that we don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to fix it. The amphitheater remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the Throaxian representative began to buzz his wings. The sound was picked up by other Throaxians in the assembly, then by Gorvan representatives stamping their feet, then by Silmari humming in harmonic frequencies. Within minutes, the entire amphitheater was erupting in the approval sounds of 200 different species. Marcus returned to his seat beside Zexhai, looking satisfied. So, the former assassin asked quietly, "What happens now?" Marcus shrugged. "Now we go back to school. I still have xenobiology exams to pass, and Sarah's got that engineering project due next week." He paused thoughtfully. "Though I suspect our curriculum is going to expand significantly. Turns out the galaxy has a lot of problems that need solving." Zexhai watched the celebration continuing around them, trying to process the magnitude of what he had witnessed. 6 months ago, he had come to kill a human student because his species was considered too dangerous to live. Now, that same species had voluntarily given up galactic domination in order to make life better for everyone else. "I still don't understand you people," he said finally. Marcus laughed. "That's okay. Most of the time, we don't understand ourselves either." He stood up as the formal session concluded. "But that's what makes life interesting, don't you think?" As they made their way out of the amphitheater, Zexhai reflected on the irony of the situation. The trade hegemony had tried to prevent human integration into galactic society because they feared it would change everything. They had been absolutely right. It had changed everything. It had just changed everything for the better. Behind them, delegates from across the galaxy were already forming groups, discussing the problems their worlds faced and wondering if perhaps these strange humans might have solutions. Transport bottlenecks, manufacturing inefficiencies, resource distribution problems that had been accepted as unchangeable facts of life for thousands of years. Marcus noticed Zexhai's expression. "Penny for your thoughts?" The assassin who had come to kill a human student had instead become witness to the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history, a species powerful enough to dominate everyone else that had chosen not to. Because that wasn't the kind of problem they were interested in solving. They were more interested in making sure the galaxy worked properly. And they were very, very good at their job. The Galactic Educational Exchange Program was supposed to be peaceful. That's what they told Zexhai when he accepted the assassination contract. One simple target, one human student among thousands of diverse species at the prestigious Andromeda Prime Academy. How hard could it be to eliminate a soft-skinned biped from a backwater world that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel? Zexhai was one of the most feared assassins in the Spiral Arm. His species, the Velkari, were natural predators with razor-sharp claws, enhanced reflexes, and the ability to phase in and out of visibility at will. He had killed senators, warlords, and crime bosses across 17 different star systems. A simple human student would be child's play. The academy floated in the void between 3 suns, its crystalline spires gleaming like jewels against the cosmic backdrop. Students from over 200 species attended classes here, learning everything from quantum mechanics to interspecies diplomacy. It was the perfect place for an accident to happen. Marcus Chun had arrived at the academy 3 standard months ago, one of only 12 humans selected for the exchange program. He was studying xenobiology and had quickly gained a reputation for his curious nature and friendly demeanor. Other students found him oddly fascinating, this creature from the death world called Earth where everything apparently tried to kill everything else. Zexhai had been watching Marcus for 2 weeks now, learning his routines. The human attended morning lectures in Biodome 7, had lunch in the common area, then spent afternoons in the practical labs. Every day, same schedule. Humans were so predictable, so mundane. What Zexhai didn't understand was why other students gave Marcus such a wide berth. The Throaxian beetle folk would skitter away when he approached. The crystalline Silmari would literally dim their light when he entered a room. Even the massive Gorvan, who stood 3 meters tall and could crush steel with their bare hands, seemed nervous around the small human. It's because he's from a Class 12 death world, He had overheard a Throaxian whisper to its clutchmate. Anything that survives on that nightmare planet has to be incredibly dangerous. Zexai had laughed at this. He had studied Earth's file. Sure, it had some large predators and natural disasters, but nothing compared to the hell worlds he had survived on during his training. The humans were soft, weak, and had only recently crawled out of their planetary cradle. They were prey species that had somehow stumbled into space technology. The perfect moment came during a field trip to the Academy's zero-gravity training facility. Marcus was alone, floating in one of the smaller chambers, practicing movements for his upcoming practical exam. The chamber was soundproof, isolated, and the perfect place for an untraceable accident. Zexai activated his cloaking field and slipped into the chamber. His claws extended, each one coated with a neurotoxin that would stop a Gorvin's heart in seconds. He had done this dance 1,000 times before. Approach from behind, one quick strike to the neck, watch the target convulse and die, then slip away before anyone noticed. The human was floating with his back turned, completely vulnerable. Zexai pushed off from the wall, sailing silently through the zero-gravity toward his target. This was almost too easy. But as Zexai reached out with his claws, something impossible happened. Without turning around, without any visible warning, Marcus suddenly twisted in the air and grabbed Zexai's wrist. The movement was so fast, so fluid, that for a moment the assassin's mind couldn't process what had happened. "Hey there," Marcus said in perfect galactic standard, his voice calm and friendly. "Were you trying to sneak up on me?" Zexai's cloaking field flickered and died. He found himself staring into Marcus's brown eyes, seeing something there that made his predatory instincts scream warnings. The human wasn't afraid. He wasn't even surprised. Those were the eyes of something that had looked death in the face so many times that it had become boring. "How did you—" Zexai began, but Marcus cut him off. "Smell," Marcus said simply. "You've got a really distinctive scent, kind of like wet metal and ozone. Plus, the air currents changed when you enter the chamber." He tilted his head curiously. "Those are some impressive claws you've got there. The coating looks toxic. Professional grade." Zexai tried to pull his arm free, but Marcus's grip was like a steel vise. Impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak. The file said their bone density was pathetic, their muscle fibers inefficient compared to proper predator species. "Let me go, human," Zexai snarled, his other set of claws extending. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Marcus smiled, and Zexai felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that enjoyed a challenge. "Actually," Marcus said, "I think I'm starting to figure it out. You're not a student, are you?" Wrong body language. Too tense. Too focused. And that equipment. He glanced at Zexai's tactical harness, barely visible under his academy robes. Military grade, but modified for stealth work. "I'm guessing you're here to kill someone." Zexai struck with his free claws, a move that should have opened Marcus from shoulder to hip. Instead, the human twisted impossibly in the zero-gravity, using Zexai's own momentum against him. Suddenly, the assassin found himself spinning through the air, completely disoriented. When Zexai managed to stabilize himself, Marcus was floating calmly 10 meters away, examining something in his hand. It took Zexai a moment to realize it was one of his own claws, broken off at the base. "Interesting," Marcus mused, holding the claw up to the light. "Definitely neurotoxic. Probably synthesized from some kind of deep space organism. Very lethal." He looked at Zexai with what could only be described as academic interest. "I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Chun. And you are?" Zexai stared at the human in disbelief. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. Humans were supposed to be easy targets. They were supposed to panic when threatened, to beg for their lives, to die quickly and quietly. Instead, he was floating in zero gravity, missing a claw, while his target made casual conversation about the toxin that was supposed to kill him. "This is impossible," Zexai whispered. Marcus shrugged. "I get that a lot. So who sent you? And please don't say you'll never tell. I'm really curious, and I haven't had a good puzzle to solve in weeks. For the first time in his career, Zexai the assassin felt something he had never experienced before when facing a target. Fear. And from the look in Marcus's eyes, the human knew it.